Here we go. Yeah. Okay.
So this is a website that a couple of us have initiated. Okay. There's a group in Bombay called CAMP, Critical Arts and Media Practice.
Okay.
There's a group in, there are two coders in Berlin who've been coming here for the last 7 years. Mm-hmm. We started collaborating with them 7 years ago and started something called Padma, which is a public access digital media archive. And then we extended that to indiancine.ma.
Okay.
And indiancine.ma is primarily looking at the future of film archiving in India. Okay. Right. So if you look at the idea of what a traditional archive's purpose has been, which is primarily a repository and we're a storehouse that preserves film. Yeah. It is an imagination of film that's very grounded in celluloid. Yeah. So the archival imagination has been a celluloid one, right? Yeah. Which is based on the idea that film will get destroyed and hence it needs to be preserved. A very important critical function that it plays. Yeah. But if you go into the very kind of philosophical basis of film archiving itself, which actually begins with Henry Langlois in France. Okay. Langlois set up the Cinémathèque and was more or less responsible for, in a way, beginning the film archive movement all around the world. Okay. But Langlois had a much more nuanced and sophisticated understanding of film archiving. So you name any of the avant-garde, French film directors, from Godard to Truffaut to René, all of them in a way have learnt their filmmaking by watching films at the Cinémathèque. So Langlois knew that on the one hand, there was a need to preserve films, but that the best way, and this is his quote, that the best way to preserve films is by showing them. So we were interested in trying to see how we could, in a way, over the last 20 years, a lot has changed from the time that Ashish wrote the encyclopedia. Yeah. And the encyclopedia, in a way, was written with a future technology in mind. Yeah. So if you look at the encyclopedia in terms of the actual original book, you'll find that it has a lot of hyperlinks. A lot of the films which were then not available have become available. And they become available as digital objects. Yes. And I distinguish the digital object from, let's say, the originally preserved copy of the film in the N.F.A.I. There's a value of celluloid. Now, if you're a filmmaker, or if you're into the romance of, the grainy texture of celluloid, all that is fine. Yeah. But we are interested in the fact that if the history of Indian cinema is about the history of loss, so something like 85 to 90% of Indian cinema is not even available, right? The fact that you now have various ways in which there are digital versions and avatars that come about, we were interested in how we build an infrastructure for research around cinema. So Indian cinema is an archive primarily of out-of-copyright films. Okay. And what it does, so if you look at this, wherever there's an image, and this is the first film that we have, it means the movie is there. Okay. Wherever there's a date, it means you only have information about this, right?
So this is available in the public domain, or this is a restricted...
Totally in the public domain. You have to be a researcher or a student, and you have to establish your bona fide. That's the only restriction. Because, so if you go here, for example, this will give you the information, right? You can then change the information view into the player view. Okay. And it goes into the film. Oh,
that's amazing. Right? Oh, this is something like your internetarchive.org. Something
the
like that.
Main thing that you'll see here is that it's not YouTube. We don't want to be YouTube. We don't want to reach 1 million viewers. We are catering to a very specific community of film researchers, film historians, and cinephiles who are willing to annotate and contribute to the project. So if you look on the right hand side, and I'll show you an example of a film with annotation. So you look at Bombay Talkies, right? So let's take
so you want support and kind of people contributing to subtitling and
look at the side, not just subtitling. Okay. So Shamnad mentioned that you've been collecting historical material as well, right? Yeah. So look at the side here. Yeah. Right. Okay. There are notes. Okay. There are original material which are there, and this is all by timeline. Okay. So if you go here, it'll go to the point at which the film there is an annotation.
Okay, so it's a hyperlinked into the movie.
into the timeline of the movie.
Okay.
Right?
Awesome.
So the movie plays here, and this is the commentary. So when you're watching this clip, now what is unique about this is it's not a read-only technology. It's a read-write technology.
Okay.
So you can edit it like Wikipedia, except that it doesn't work like Wikipedia where I can replace something. I can add a layer.
Okay.
And why do we have that? Because the very nature of film and film interpretation is such that you can have multiple interpretations of the same film. So you can see what Madhav Prasad wants to say about Achyut Kanya, you can see what Devashri Mukherjee wants to say about Achyut Kanya, or you can see what Lawrence Liang wants to say about Achyut Kanya.
Okay.
But they can all coexist.
Okay.
So if you look at the detailed amount of work,
there is
right? There are also other links. There are research links that are there. So what we are trying to create is an online archive of cinema.
Okay.
And we're going on the basis very clearly of two things. One is very, very clearly in the law, copyright term is 60 years from the date of publication. Now, in the case of an unpublished work, you have a problem. As you know, in the law, if a work, even though the author is dead for more than 60 years, wasn't published in his time, for example, Tagore's Letters comes out, then there is a new date for the copyright of that work. But in most cases, the films that we are interested in, the date of publication can be understood to be the date that exists on the census certificate. That's your best record for when the film came into the public domain. 60 years from that time, in other words, the golden period of Indian cinema. We are now in 2015. Up to 2014, the films are already in the public domain. Up to 1954, the films are in the public domain.
Okay.
Which includes enormous masterpieces like Avara, etc.
Okay.
By law, there is absolutely no doubt that the term of their copyright has come to an end.
நான் வந்திருப்பேன்னு எங்க அம்மாவுக்கும் அப்பாவுக்கும் பெரிய சண்டை வர போய் நான் பயந்துகிட்டு சாயங்கால வரையில அண்டாக்குள்ளவே ஒளிஞ்சிட்டு இருந்தேன்னு.
Now what's the problem? And why is the N.F.A.I so reluctant? And why do people think that they even have a copyright on this? Two things. One is, like in patent law, you have the concept of evergreening. There is an attempt within the film industry to try to have an evergreening. And the reason for the extension of copyright term globally, especially starting in the US, has been because of the film industry. So it's primarily the end of the term of copyright in Walt Disney that propels, in a way, the extension of copyright term in the US. And that spills over to other countries, it spills over to India. Because until around 15 years ago, the copyright term in India was 50 years after the death of the author. It got extended after the copyright in Tagore came to an end. Around 5 years ago, the term of copyright in Gandhi's works came to an end. And there were some, requests or, demands being made to extend the term of copyright, except that the Gandhi Trust cited Gandhi's own opposition to copyright law and said that he wouldn't have wanted it. Right? So that's what hasn't allowed for the extension of term. It's very simple. I mean, copyright should not even be for this long. If you look at the origin of copyright when it began, it was for a period of 14 years. The reason being that copyright is a system of balances.
Talking about this 14 years is
Statute of Anne, 1706.
Okay.
The very first law.
Okay, fine.
Statute of Anne, 14 years. Why? Because it's a system of balance. It's meant to promote, on the one hand, the creativity of authors, and at the same time ensure that works come into the public domain. The balance has shifted entirely. So the balance of power lies primarily now with extremely powerful lobbies and industry. Unfortunately for them, technology has always been 2 steps ahead, both of the law and as well of power. And the very nature of film as property has transformed, because one couldn't copy nitrate films, but even there, If you look at Nitin Govil, who's a professor in Virginia, his work on the history of film piracy in the era of Douglas Fairbanks.
Okay.
Fantastic. You'll see that copying and replication was very much a part of everything, right?
Yes,
so in fact, there's someone who writes to Douglas Fairbanks to invite him from Tamil Nadu, in fact.
Okay.
I can share that paper with you. Fabulous paper.
Okay.
Invites him to a screening in Chennai.
Okay.
And says, will you be the chief guest?
Okay.
And Douglas Fairbanks says, I didn't even know my films are being shown in India.
Okay.
But this is commercial releases in the 30s. So I'm saying that this idea of piracy, we shouldn't worry about it too much. It's been there from the birth of the industry, from the very first film that was made, namely The Gardener's Hose, which is even before all the narrative cinema comes into place. There has been, look at Jane Gaines's work, film historian who works on copyright and film.
Yeah.
So our thing is that the technological possibilities that can allow us to completely reshape our imagination of a film archive is constrained only by limited understanding of law. So this is a workshop that I did in N.F.A.I, and this is the second day.
Okay.
And this was for all the N.F.A.I staff.
Okay.
So Mr. Prashant Patabri was the director then.
Okay.
And basically, if you look at what it is, it's talking about what the idea of a living archive is.
Okay.
Right? What is it that archives do? What are the practices?
Yeah.
And when does copyright expire?
Okay.
And what is the role? What can N.F.A.I do? Right?
Okay.
They have a really conservative approach. But it's not that they don't understand the law. Even they know the law.
Yeah.
Their problem is because it is sarkari. Right, so you look at this is the entire thing that we've done for them, right?
Yeah.
Going right into the entire history of archives.
Okay.
To make them understand, with film archives, this is the Roja Mutaya Memorial.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, I was there last week.
Yeah. So took them through the entire history of fair use of term of copyright and what the library and archival exceptions are. Right? Now the key issue, of course, here is, let me take you to that. There's a proposed treaty for exceptions for libraries and archives that hasn't happened yet. It's at WIPO.
Okay.
Show them what the digital, the copyright amendment, what are the exceptions that it
This is
brings
the 2012 amendment, Okay.
Okay. And what you can do, etc.
Okay.
They are convinced on the law. The problem is very simple. They're like, what is the main problem we face? The main problem we face is that archives generally themselves have been considered pirates. And this has always been the case. John Grayson, I can send you some material about this. One of the early kind of documentary people, archives, etc. All of them talk about how they were treated as pirates by the family of the
copyright owners.
The copyright owners.
Yeah.
There's a misguided idea that the heirs have, that they are entitled to, reap benefits from the work for eternity.
Yeah.
Absolute, utter nonsense.
Yeah.
There is a reason why there is copyright term.
Yeah.
And the work is very much in the public domain. After copyright term comes to an end, you have no claim whatsoever on it. But nonetheless, very often the N.F.A.I has faced a situation where they get legal notices from people. I'll give you a very concrete case. We were recently in touch with Mrinal Sen.
Bengali director Mrinal Sen.
Because he was very keen on giving his films to us. Because he said this is I think it's a great research project. And what you've done with Bombay Talkies, you can similarly do with my films. The problem is that the copies of the film he doesn't have. Only N.F.A.I has it. N.F.A.I will not even give those films, despite Mrinal Sen wanting them to be out in the public domain. Now you could see that as a technical issue. A technical issue would be who's the owner of copyright in the film. The director is not the owner of copyright in the film. The producer is the copyright. The argument that we have is a very simple one.
Okay.
At the end of the day, despite a legal claim that you may have, the person who has the greatest moral claim to copyright remains the creator of the work, not the owner of the work, right? If you look at the amendment to the Copyright Act that happened 2012, it reflects that. Because of the imbalance that has always existed between the producer and the director, the amendment attempts to balance that by bringing in, a stronger protection for director rights. So, in an absurd kind of a scenario where the film is not available, there is no circulation or exhibition of the film. The director wants the film to be made publicly available as a research project, but N.F.A.I will not give a copy of the film. Right? So this is the problem. N.F.A.I can understand that they are a Sarkari institution. Whenever a legal notice is sent to them, they have to take it to the Ministry of Law. There is the possibility of the bureaucracy being so completely stuck in a way that what they're worried about is not so much about the actual legality of the notice, but about the fact that it has to open out yet another bureaucratic file for them. They're worried about taking bold steps that someone raises a stink about and that affects their promotion. Right? So it's these very stupid practical stuff that has nothing to do with law, nothing to do with cinema, that affects how the national institution of, the premier national institution works. What's the solution? I don't see a short-term solution. We have tried, in fact, we've also written a joint proposal, by the way, with the N.F.A.I. So I don't know if you know Sahapedia.
No.
Sahapedia is an online encyclopedia of culture. So Sahapedia and indiancine.ma actually did a joint application.
So can I interrupt you for just a moment? We know that is the cine.ma anyway connected with what Shiv Singh Dungarpur is doing with the Martin Scorsese Foundation? Nothing. Okay.
We know what Shiv is doing. He knows about what we are doing. But his is a project of preservation. Classical project. See, a project of preservation is important.
Yes.
Right? But we don't have the bandwidth for it. We don't have that kind of access to resources and to money. So that's not our area of interest at all. I mean, someone should do that, and that's the role of the film archive. If you look at indiancine.ma, and if it was built by either a private organization or by the government, how much do you think it would cost? A conservative estimate would be 10 crores. This has been entirely built by voluntary. So I think that there is a way in which the transformation of forms of production in terms of the new information era that we live in, crowdsourcing of labor and passionate labor at that. You look at Wikipedia is built entirely by amateurs. And if you look at Wikipedia in terms of the amount of information on Indian cinema that actually exists on Wikipedia, it's very impressive. It's quite remarkably well updated. In fact, I mean, the information on science unfortunately isn't as well updated as as cinema is. But this is the aim. The aim is that when we think about the future archive is one that can be authored, developed and designed and contributed by people. The state will have to do what the state does.